1. All right, so we're all looking at this worksheet for Math 2 Factoring Classwork Day 4, Part 1. We're going to do factoring the difference of two squares and perfect square trinomials. So for 1, 2, 3, we're going to multiply out the following. So hopefully this looks familiar. We're just going to follow the FOIL method. So remember, FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, and last. So we're going to multiply the first terms of these two factors. So the x and the x. That gives us x squared. Then we're going to do the O in the FOIL. So O stands for outer. So that's this one. O stands for outer. That means the x multiplies with the 10. That will give us plus 10x. So then we have to do I in the FOIL, which stands for inner. So that would be the negative 10 and the x. That gives us negative 10x. And then we do the L in FOIL, which stands for last. So that would be the negative 10 times positive 10, which gives us negative 100. Any questions up till here? Okay, so then we just need to simplify this. So we need to simplify these two terms in the middle. So we have a plus 10x and minus 10x. They actually, since they're both 10, but one's positive, one's negative, they're going to cancel each other out. And so what we end up with is x squared minus 100. I'm just going to put a box around that. Okay, so we have x squared minus 100. So when you have x minus 10 multiplied to x plus 10, we get x squared minus 100. Then for number 2, we got 3x minus 2 and then 3x plus 2. So when we're going to FOIL this, we're just going to start off with first again. Remember, F in FOIL stands for first. So that means the 3x multiplies by the 3x, and that gives us 9x squared, because 3 times 3 is 9, and x times x is x squared. Then for the O in FOIL, that's outer, so then that means the 3x and the 2. So that would give us plus 6x, because 2 times 3 is 6, and then there's just an x there. Then we do the inner. So inner is the inside two numbers. So the negative 2 multiplied by the 3x, that gives us negative 6x. And then finally we have L for last, which stands for, or which represents these two numbers, the negative 2 and the plus 2, which gives us minus 4. So then we're not done yet. We just need to simplify. So once again, when you simplify after FOILing, you're just simplifying the middle two numbers. So those middle two numbers, we have a plus 6x and a minus 6x, and then they just cancel out because they're opposites. And then we will be left with 9x squared minus 4. And I will put a box around that. And then I'm going to pause here to see if anyone needs more time to wait or to write. There we go. All right, number 3 then. Number 3 says a minus b multiplied by a plus b. So once again, we're going to FOIL it. First, outer, inner, last. Let's start with the F for first. We get a times a gives us a squared. O in FOIL stands for outer, so I'm going to do a times b. That gives me ab. Inner, we have negative b times a, so that would be minus ab. I'm just writing the a first because alphabetical order. You could write negative ba, it's the same thing. And then finally, L for last, so that would be the negative b multiplied by the positive b, and that would be minus b squared. So we FOILed this, and then our last step is to simplify the middle two numbers, the middle two terms. And then we would get that they cancel out because plus AB minus AB, it means you just added it, then you took it away right away. It just goes to nothing. Then we would be left with a squared minus b squared. Okay. So I'm going to pause this, see if you guys need time to write. Okay, so somebody asked, why isn't this one a squared plus b squared? Well, that's because when you did our FOILing, we did first, outer, inner, and last. Specifically, when we did last, let me erase this part first. Specifically, when we did last, it was negative b times positive b, and a negative times a positive will give us a negative. That's why it ends up being a minus b squared. So that's why it's a minus b squared and not plus b squared. Okay, so then for number 4, it says, how are these problems the same? So when you look at it, number 1, number 2, number 3, it says x minus 10 multiplied by x plus 10. And then number 2 says 3x minus 2 times 3x plus 2. And then number 3 says a minus b and then a plus b. So I want you guys to think of it in your own words. How can you describe the pattern that's going on in numbers 1, 2, and 3? All right, so let's describe what was happening. So let me first talk about some math vocabulary. Oh, okay, great. So some people did suggest same numbers / letters, but different signs. Yes, that they are all taking away the second and third numbers. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna write that first one because I think it was very succinct. So same numbers / letters. There's not much space here to write. I apologize. But different signs. So what I think you mean is like if it was x, like for example, for number 1, it was x minus 10 and x plus 10. You have an x and you have a 10. In one of the factors, you're subtracting. In the other factor, you're adding. And then if you look at number 2, we have 3x minus 2, 3x plus 2. There's a 3x and there's a 2 in both factors. However, one is minus 2, the other one is plus 2. And then if you look at number 3, there's an a and a b. One is a minus b, the other is a plus b. Okay, so that's great. And then what is unique about each product? So I remember I got an answer earlier. I have to scroll up in the chat. They both end up in a squared variable subtracting something else. Yeah, so in each of our answers, we have an x squared, or we have like a 9x squared, or we have an a squared right over here. So we end up with a squared variable. I'm gonna write that. And we're have a squared variable, and then subtracting something else. And then I want to actually make it more specific. We are actually subtracting another squared. We are subtracting a perfect square. Subtracting a perfect square. Okay, and then for number 6, we're going to use algebraic vocabulary to describe the pattern shown in each product. So that's kind of like number 5, except we're just going to describe it more like math terms. So the pattern in each product is that the first number, or the first term, sorry, I did not spell that right. The first term of our product, and I'm going to highlight that in a certain color so you know what I'm talking about. So the first term of our product is like the x squared or the 9x squared or the a squared. So that's the first term in our product is the first term in the factors squared. And what is that? So let me highlight that also so that you can see where I'm referring to. The first term in the factors is the x in number 1, or the 3x in number 2, or the a in number 3. And so what I mean by that sentence, where the first term of our product is the first term of the factors squared, it's saying that our blue number, you see like what I highlighted in blue, the blue number is equal to the purple number squared. So in number 1, where we have x squared as our first term, x squared is equal to x squared, literally. And then over here in number 2, we have the 9x squared. That's 3x times itself. So 3x times 3x gives us 9x squared. And then for number 3, the a squared, which is our first term of the product, is equal to this purple number, or in this case, purple letter, squared. So it's a times itself. So it's a squared. And then we can use another sentence, and we're going to write that sentence in really squishly. We're going to use another sentence to describe that same pattern for the second term of our product. The second term of our product. Okay, and then what is the second term of our product? I'm going to highlight that in yellow, the second term of our product. That's this number, so like the 100, the 4, and the b squared. So that's what I mean by the second term of our product, is the second term in the factors. My pen just stopped working for a second. Is the second term in the factors squared. So what is the second term in our factors? Let me highlight that in green. The second term in the factors, that would be the 10. Or the, in number 2, 2. Or in number 3, b. So let me point out again for number 1, if we're looking at the 100 over here, 100 is this green number squared. So 10 squared is 100. And so that's why there's 100 in the number 1's answer. For number 2, this 4, we got the 4 from this green number 2. 2 squared is 4. And then in number 3, we have our b squared. And where do we get b squared? Well, it's the green letter, so b times itself. So b squared is b squared. All right, I'm going to pause the video because I know you guys need more time to write. So I'm going to pause it now. So next, we're going to use this pattern to factor each of the following. So we know that the products end up being squared versions of the factors, essentially. So we know that x squared is something squared. Well, x squared is just x squared. So I'm going to put x there, and I'm going to put x there. The square root, I'm just going to write this on the side. The square root of x squared is x. So that's how I ended up with x in my factors. What about the 9? What's the square root of 9? You can just type it in the chat while I color code. What is the square root of 9? Yes, the square root of 9 is 3. So that means I'm going to put a 3 here and a 3 here. And then finally, is it plus 3? Is it minus 3? The answer is pretty simple. It's a minus 3 and a plus 3. Or you could write the plus first and then the minus second. It doesn't matter. But this is your factored form. X minus 3, x plus 3. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So we have x squared minus 4. What is the square root of x squared? You can let me know in the chat. What is the square root of x squared? And I'm going to put that answer over here where the purple blob is. X, good. I'm going to put x and x because the square root of x squared is x. Now, what about this number, the 4? What is the square root of 4? 2, great. So then I'm going to write 2 and 2 over here. So then, should I be x plus 2, x plus 2, x minus 2, x minus 2, x plus 2, x minus 2? Like, what combination of signs should I use? One of them should be adding and one of them should be subtracting. Sorry, I figured that would be hard to type, so I just said it. But I think you were going to answer. But I'm sure you were right anyways. One should be x plus 2, one should be minus 2. Okay, and then let's do the same thing for number 9. I'm getting lazier with my colors, but I think you guys got the idea. So, what's the square root of x squared? X, good. And then what is the square root of 81? 9. Why'd you type it with all those like apostrophes? But yes, 9. And so you could write x plus 9, x minus 9, and that would be correct. And by the way, like I said earlier, just in case you didn't catch it, this is the same thing as x minus 9, x plus 9. Like you could reverse the order. Number 8, you could have well, I don't have space. Number 8, you could have said x minus 2 first and then x plus 2, and that's fine. And then number 7, you could have said x plus 3, x minus 3. You could just switch the order. Like this one could be x plus 3, x minus 3. This middle one, you could have switched the order also. I just don't really have space. But either way, if you put the plus first, it's fine. If you put the minus first, it's fine because it's the same thing anyways. So I'm going to pause the recording here to give you guys some time to catch up. Okay, so then let's see for the next section, we have to multiply the following. Remember, x plus 1 squared means x plus 1 times itself. So we have for 10, 11, and 12, it's all a factor that's being multiplied to itself. So I'm just going to rewrite this so that we can see it better. So that when we're foiling it, you know like what's the first, what's the outer, what's the inner, what's the last. And so let's do the FOIL method. So we have first, x times x gives us x squared. Then we have our outer. So x times 4 gives us plus 4x. We have our inner. 4 times x gives us plus 4x again. And then we have our last. 4 times 4 gives us 16. And as usual, we must combine the middle two numbers. So we have, where would I write this? Okay, I have space here. We have x squared plus 4x plus 4x, that's going to be 8x. And then plus 16. You can see my writing got skinnier as I realized I don't want to write over into the space of number 11. But yeah, so for number 10, we have x squared plus 8x plus 16. Okay. Let's do number 11 as well. Number 11, let me rewrite it. This is x minus 3, x minus 3. And then when I rewrite it out, it helps us see better when we're foiling. So for the F in FOIL, that stands for first. That's x times x. That gives us x squared. The O in FOIL stands for outer. That means the x and the negative 3. So that gives us minus 3x. The I in FOIL stands for inner. So that would be the negative 3 times the x. That's another minus 3x. And then the L in FOIL stands for last. So that's the negative 3 times the negative 3. It's a positive 9. Because remember that a negative times a negative gives us a positive number. Okay, so then we're going to simplify this as usual. We have our inner two terms that need to be simplified. And in this case, we will get x squared minus 6x plus 9. So the x squared stays the same. The minus 3x and the minus 3x, that becomes a minus 6x because there's two of the minus 3x's. And then there's a plus 9. Oh, let me put a box around that. And then we'll do one more, and then I will, of course, pause the video because I know you guys need time to write. So for number 12, let me expand this again. So a plus b, because a plus b squared is just, if you just write it 2 times. And then we can FOIL this. So first is the a times a, giving us a squared. Outer, the O in FOIL stands for outer. So that is the a times b. That's going to give us ab. The inner, so that's the b and the a multiplied together. And remember, b times a is the same thing as a times b. So I'm just going to write it in alphabetical order. So I'm going to write the a first, and then the b for the b times a. And then the L in FOIL stands for last. So I'm going to do b times b, and that would be b squared. And once again, we're not done yet. We just must simplify the inner two. So we got a squared plus ab plus b squared. That's a squared plus, how many ab's were there? 2 of them, 2ab plus b squared. I am so sorry, that's so squishy. I'm going to rewrite it on the bottom instead. That's terrible looking. Okay, so we got a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. There we go. It was too squishy. I had to rewrite it. So the a squared stays the same. There was ab and there was another ab, so that's a total of 2 ab's. And then finally it's a b squared at the end. So I'm going to pause the recording and see and give you guys more time to write. Okay, so number 13 says, how are each of these problems the same? Well, number 10 was x plus 4 squared. Number 11 was x minus 3 squared. Number 12 was a plus b squared. So each of these are a factor squared. They all they all square a factor. So you square the factor because it was x plus 4 squared or x minus 3 squared or a plus b squared. So they're all taking the factor and squaring it. Number 14, what is unique about the first and last terms of each product? So in the product, so I'm going to highlight again. I'll use blue, I guess. The first term in the product is the x squared. Or I guess in this one is the a squared. And then the last term in the product is the 16 or the 9 or the b squared. So they are perfect squares. And what do I mean by that? Well, x squared is literally this number squared, and then in number 11 is literally that x that's being squared, and then number 12 is literally that a being squared. And then I'll just use the same color as yellow for the last. For number 10, the 16 is the 4 being squared. And then in number 11, that 9 in our answer, that was the negative 3 being squared. And then in number 12, the b squared at the very end of our answer, that is this b being squared. So that's what I mean by they're perfect squares. They're literally squares of that factor, of the terms of the factor. And number 15, what pattern do you notice in the middle term of each product? Okay, so the middle term is like the 8x in number 10, negative 6x in number 11, or the 2ab in number 12. So that's the middle term. Okay, and so the pattern of that 8x or the negative 6x or the 2ab, it is double the product. Why is this not writing? Okay, product of the first and last terms of the factor. Okay, so what I mean by that is literally, you see this green number 8x in number 10? That's taking the x and the 4. Let me see, I guess I could underline it. That's taking the x and the 4, multiplying it together so that you get 4x, and then doubling that. So double of 4x gives us 8x. And what about the negative 6x in number 11? So if you take the two numbers in the factor, so the x and the negative 3, you multiply it together, you get negative 3x. Double that, and you will end up with our middle term, our green number right here. And for number 12, our middle term is the 2ab. So how do we get 2ab? Well, you take the two terms of our factors, the a and the b, multiply them, so you get ab, and you double it, so you get 2ab. So you take the first and last terms of the factors, multiply it together, and you double it. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and give you guys some time to write. Okay, so for number 16, we're going to use that pattern to factor this thing. So it's kind of similar to what we were doing before, except that this time it's just going to be something, oops, I want to use black, something squared. Okay, and so to figure that out, look at our first number, we get x squared. What is the square root of x squared? It's just x, right? So I'm going to put an x in there. Okay, and then we take a look at our last number, 25. What is the square root of 25? And you'll probably think 5. Okay, so I'm going to put a 5 here. And then you take a look at the sign in this one, and it says a minus 10x. So that makes me think that this might be a minus 5, but I'm going to check. I'm going to check by taking these two terms, 5 and x, or negative 5 and x, multiplying it together, so I get negative 5x. and doubling it to check the pattern that we saw in number 15. So we have a negative 5x and we double it. Does that equal negative 10x? The number in our middle? And yes, it does. So then this would be our answer, x minus 5 squared. So of course, some of you guys just like using the x factor method, and that's totally fine too. So you can do it with the x factor method. And then let's see, for number 17, I'm just going to kind of draw a line there so there's more space. Same thing. So I'm going to say that the answer is something squared. So what is the square root of x squared, our first term? That's x. So I'm going to put x in here. What is the square root of 1? That is 1. So I'm going to put 1 over here. And then I look at the sign over here and it's a plus. So I think it might be x plus 1 squared. But I'm going to check against the pattern that we saw in number 15, which is if you take these two numbers, the x and the 1, multiply it together and double it, we should get our middle term, 2x. So let's see if we can get 2x. So I take the x and the 1 and multiply it together, I get 1x. I'm going to double that. Is 2 times 1x our middle term? 2x? And yes, it is. So since it is, we're good for number 17. It would be x plus 1 squared. Okay. And then for number 18, I'm going to pause it a little bit, give you guys some time. So, okay, we had a question that actually wants us to do an x factor method. So I'm going to do the x factor method on number 17, just because. So I'm going to show the work for that over here, even though it's in numbers 20 space. So you don't have to copy this because we have done x factor method examples before, but I'm just doing it to refresh your memory, okay? So you don't have to copy what I'm doing here in the space of number 20, because I'm going to do number 17 as the x factor method. Okay, so for the x factor method, you want to take the top number, this 1, and put it up here, and you want to make sure our numbers that we choose will multiply to 1. And then you're going to take our middle number, which is the 2x, so take the 2. I can't really point, there's already an arrow there. Take that 2 from the 2x, and we're going to put it on the bottom, and we want our numbers to add to 2. So you think of two numbers that multiply to 1 and add to 2. The answer would be 1 and 1, because 1 times 1 equals 1, and 1 plus 1 equals 2. So when you write it out, you say x. For this one, you say plus 1. And then for this other one, you also say x plus 1. So then x plus 1, that's the same thing as x plus 1 squared. So this is just a refresher on how to do the x factor method. Does that kind of make sense? Sound familiar? Cool. So like I said, you don't have to write that down. So I'm actually going to erase that. Is that okay? And it's lagging, which is just great. Okay, cool. Oh my gosh, come on, stop lagging, please. All right. Is it still lagging? Yes, it is still lagging. That's fine. Okay. Let's do number 18 now. So we have 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. And so we're going to have an answer that's something squared. So let's take a look at our first term. We got 4x squared. What's the square root of 4x squared? Well, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of x squared is just x. So I'm going to put x squared, or 2x over here. And then let's take a look at this number. This is a 9. So what's the square root of 9? And that's going to be 3. So I'm going to put a 3 over here. And then for number 18, the middle symbol is a minus sign. So I think it's going to be a minus sign here. And let's check. Let's double check using the pattern in number 15. And the pattern in number 15 says that if you multiply the 2x and negative 3, and then you double that, you should get this middle number, so negative 12x. So we are trying to get negative 12x here. So let's multiply our two numbers. 2x and negative 3, that's going to be minus 6x. If I double that, do I get minus 12x? Yes, we do. So then this is good. Okay. So this is our answer for number 18. I'm going to pause the video, see if you guys need more time to write. Okay, let's skip number 19, 20, 21, because I think you'll get plenty of additional practice in, what's it called? In Delta Math. Okay, and then, okay, so I really wanted us to do number 22, 23, 24, but I feel like, no, I think we should do it so that you actually understand where the formulas come from. So let's do number 22 first. And then we have to essentially just distribute everything in the first term to everything, or distribute everything in the first factor to everything in the second factor. So we're going to follow this pattern. So distribute the x to everything and then distribute the minus 10 to everything. Okay, so let's take that x and distribute it to everything. So x times x squared gives us x cubed. X times 10x gives us 10x squared. X times 100 gives us 100x. And then we have the negative 10, and we have to distribute everything, or distribute that to everything in the second parentheses. So negative 10 times x squared is minus 10x squared. Ooh, I'm going to run out of space. So I'm going to write it under here, minus 10x squared, and then distribute that negative 10 to the 10x over here, and that's going to be minus 100x, and then distribute the negative 10 to the last term, the 100, and that will give us minus 1000. And then since this is all in line, I'm just going to kind of add them straight down. Notice that I lined up the x squared so that I can just easily see and cancel them. So then our x cubes, there's nothing to cancel out that with. Yes, I see your message. You can go. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then the 10x squared and the minus 10x squared, they will cancel out and you will have nothing there. The 100x and the minus 100x will also cancel out and you will have nothing there. And then finally, you'll just have a minus 1000 at the end. But it looks weird if I give it that much of a space, so I'm just going to write minus 1000 here. Okay, so x cubed minus 1000 is what we end up with when we multiply those two factors. So notice how like there's only two terms. There's an x cubed and there's a minus 1000. And then for number 23, it's going to be pretty similar. So let's take a look at what happens. X times x squared gives us x cubed. X times minus 2x gives us minus 2x squared. X times 4 gives us plus 4x. Okay, and then we do 2 times x squared. That gives us plus 2x squared. Notice I am lining up my x squareds, so it just makes it easier when I add everything up together later on. We have a 2 times a minus 2x, that gives us a minus 4x. And we have a 2 multiplied by a 4, that gives us plus 8 at the end. Then you'll notice that the minus 2x squared and the 2x squared cancels, and the plus 4x and the minus 4x cancel. We will be left with x cubed plus 8. That 8, I just rewrote it there. Okay, and hopefully you are seeing a pattern. And in number 24, this pattern will be shown again to us. So we have an a plus b and an a squared minus ab plus b squared. And so let's multiply the a times the a squared. That gives us a cubed. A times the minus ab, that gives us minus a squared b. A times the b squared, that's going to give us plus ab squared. And then we're going to do the same thing with the b. So distribute b times a squared is going to give us plus a squared b. I'm just writing in alphabetical order, so I just put the a before the b. Then the b times the minus ab, that gives us a minus ab squared. Last but not least, b times b squared gives us plus b cubed. And so all in all, these cancel, we are left with a cubed plus b cubed. Okay, so it actually nicely works out that we get to just have perfect cubes in our answer. And for the sake of time, we're not gonna do 25 and 26, but just know that using this type of pattern that we just described here, we get these two formulas that we see on the bottom. So right here and right here.
Excuse me?
Yes. All right, so we were talking about these two formulas that are shown on the bottom, and we kind of get those formulas from doing this process that we did in number 24. Like literally number 24 is one of our formulas. It's the first formula right over here. And then the second formula is just pretty much the same, but just minus b cubed instead of plus b cubed, okay? And so I guess instead of writing everything down for these words part of it, I wanted to, but it just like takes too much time. So we don't have enough time to do that. But we'll just talk about the formulas instead of writing it down. So for the first formula, this one, a cubed plus b cubed, notice that a plus b, this one has the same sign as the a cubed plus b cubed. So if it's adding, then we're adding. Take a look at the second one. If it's minus, then you have an a minus b. Okay, so that's the first thing I want you to notice is that the first factor, it has the same symbol. So if it's plus, then it's plus. If it's minus, then it's minus. Then also notice that the middle term of the second part, it's the opposite symbol. So in our first equation, since it was a cubed plus b cubed, we got a minus ab as our middle term. For our second formula, since it's a cubed minus b cubed right over here, since it's a minus there, then we have a plus ab as our middle term, okay? So this is the pattern. And so we're gonna use that pattern for like, let's just do a couple of the bottom problems. So like number 30, let's do number 30. We have x cubed plus 8. Let's just figure out what is the cubic root of x cubed. Or sorry, yeah, cubic root of x cubed, that's just x. So this is going to be whatever our a is, okay? And then what about 8? What is the cubic root of 8? So that means what times itself 3 times will be 8? And the answer is 2. Just to remind you, 2 times, why is this not working? Times 2 times 2 equals 8. 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8. So 2 multiplied by itself 3 times equals 8. That's why the cubic root of 8 is 2. So now that we know what our a and b are, x cubed plus 8, I'm going to have an x and a 2 over here. It is a plus sign, so I'm going to write x plus 2. Then for the other part, look at our formula. I don't know how to point, so I'm like literally scribbling it. For that part of our formula, we have the a squared minus ab plus b squared. So instead of a squared, I'm going to write x squared because our x is our a. And then we have a minus symbol because it says minus ab. And ab is just these two numbers multiplied by each other. So minus 2x. If my pen would just stop lagging. And then finally on our little trinomial up here, we have a b squared at the end. And so for that b squared at the end, that is 2 squared. So what is 2 squared? 4. So our final answer for number 30 is x plus 2 times x squared minus 2x plus 4. So you will have delta math problems that look like these examples. So you just gotta remember your formulas. So you have to use the formulas. If you forget, Delta Math also has the formulas on their example problems, and Delta Math also has example videos. So yeah. Let's do number 31. So number 31, we have x cubed minus 125. So let's think, what is the cubic root of x cubed? And that's just x. What about the cubic root of 125? And that's 5. You can always use a calculator for this to calculate the cubic roots of like numbers if you don't know what they are. So the cubic root of 125 is 5. Okay, so now that we know what our a and our b values are, we can plug them into the formula. So this is x cubed minus 125. So we are following this second formula over here. So I just draw arrows because I can't point. So we have a minus b because it was an a cubed minus b cubed, right? So we have to use the same sign over here, a minus b. My pen's lagging. X minus 5 because our x was a and our b is 5. And then now let's deal with this part. So we have a squared plus ab plus b squared. So our a squared is x squared. And our plus ab is x times 5. So plus 5x. And then plus b squared, oops. So plus 25. And so that would be for number 31. Okay, I'm going to pause here. Where's my mouse? All right, so I'm going to skip 32. We're just going to do 33. I'll scroll that much so that we can still see the formulas. And then we have 8x cubed minus 125. So we're going to figure out the cubic root of 8x cubed. So I know there's going to be an x in it because it's x cubed. So I'm just going to put x there. Also, remember the cubic root of 8 is 2. So the cubic root of 8x cubed is 2x. So that's our a value. And then what about our b value? So take a look at the 125. Let's do the cubic root of 125. And that's going to be 5. Because 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. And so 5 is our b value. Okay, so then plugging it into our formula, I have 2x, and I have a 5 here. This has a minus sign, so I'm going to say 2x minus 5, not 2x plus 5. We're going to keep the same sign that we see over there, just like in our formula. In this case, it's the second formula. And then for the next part, we have a squared plus ab plus b squared. So a squared will be 2x squared. So 2x squared is actually 4x squared because the 2 has to be squared and the x has to be squared. So it's 4x squared. And then for ab, it's multiply the 2x and the 5. So 2x times 5, that's 10x. And finally, for the b squared, that's 5 squared. So it's plus 25. And so this would be our answer for number 33. Are there any questions? So for the rest of the stuff that we didn't do, like number 32, number 34, 35, and like 27 through 29, you don't have to do it. Just turn in what we did in class, and that's enough because we worked all class on this. It's not like I need you to work more on it. So just turn in what you got. As long as you did the stuff that we did here in class, you'll get good credit for it. And I'm going to stop the recording here.